Springboks depth chart for 2021. Folks, if you guys ever remember the YouTube channel, the 1014 Rugby, they used to do these really cool bits in the lead up to the Rugby World Cup 2019, which would talk about the depth that all the teams had built in the years preceding the Rugby World Cup. I'm going to have a look at something similar for this one, which is how have the Springboks gone about. Hopefully over time we'll do more teams, the All Blacks, England, and you know, most of the kind of Tri-Nations, Rugby Championship, Six Nations sides, to see how are they going for their depth, how have they built depth or have they not built depth, how have they kind of spent their minutes from the game time they have had in their 2021 campaign. Are they rotating too much? Are they not rotating enough? Have they got everything invested in kind of one or two players in certain positions? But yeah, it should be an interesting look. We'll have a look at the depth by position, kind of look at what is the most picked 15 in 2021, what changes we might expect in 2022. And yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts. Now, it's been an interesting one for Jacques Nienaber, first year as the head coach in South Africa. And he's kind of kept things pretty steady, you'd have to say. There's not been wholesale changes from that Rugby World Cup squad in 2019. It was not helped by the fact they didn't play any games in 2020. So it's not been so much about a year of kind of building and experimenting. It's been more kind of consolidating and getting everyone back on the same page is the feeling I get. They played, I think, 13 games. They won 8 from 13. Home, they were really strong. They just lost that one. And I'm not including the South Africa A game in these numbers, I should say, because it's not an official test. They, on neutral ground, had 1 from 2 when they beat the All Blacks once and lost once, although, admittedly, Australia is a lot closer to New Zealand, so that lends itself to being more of a home advantage to New Zealand, even if it's technically neutral. And away from home, they were 2 from 5. So they lost the 2 to Australia and 1 to England, whereas they beat Wales and Scotland. So yeah, it's a solid campaign. I'm starting with the Springboks because they are #1 in the world. So let's start at the top and we'll work our way down. By my count, they played 41 players, which is not a heck of a lot in the scheme of things, but is it? I haven't actually looked at every other team to see if it's a lot more or a lot less, but that's why I'm hoping as we do these videos they will kind of get progressively more interesting. But we'll see. We'll start with the Springboks. Let's go by position as well. We'll start with the front row. And I've got the numbers here for the front rowers, 1, 2, and 3. The guys in green are the guys who got the most minutes. The guys in blue, second, and then yellows in third. And then we kind of get progressively smaller minutes if we're getting into different colors. So you can see for the props, there's been a decent amount of rotation, but there's one guy who appears on both 1 and 3. So your green guys for the props in South Africa, Stephen Kitsoff has had just over half of all the minutes of the games the Springboks have played at Loosehead this year, whereas Frans Malherbe has had kind of less than 40%. The spread has been a bit more even between him, who's in green, Vincent Koch, who's in blue, and then Trevor Nyakane, who's in yellow. But Trevor Nyakane is also in yellow on the Loosehead side, so he's kind of in that great position where he can and has covered both. So Frans Malherbe clearly has less minutes than Kitsoff. But remember, he's been injured. So the tight head ones were one where they've kind of had to change things around a little bit with that injury and forced change. I do like the look of Loosehead. It's kind of like your 2 main guys in Ox and Kitsoff. Well, the Ox has kind of had to step up in recent times with Trevor moving sides, and then Trevor as well. So it's a nice spread of guys who've got minutes. Tight head. They've tried out Wilco Lowe and they've tried out Thomas du Toit, but kind of not intensive minutes for those guys. It's been more about Vincent and Frans plus Trevor who's switched sides. For hooker, it's all about those 2 guys, isn't it? It's maybe one area we look at and go, South Africa probably needs a 3rd guy. They've got Dweber there. He's that little yellow one at the top, but he's had bugger all time compared to the likes of Marks and Bongi, who pretty much split. Bongi's in green, Marks is in blue. Yeah, they pretty much split the time between those 2 guys, don't they? So yeah, you've clearly got your 2 main guys, and there's not really, I mean, Dweber is the 3rd guy, but kind of hasn't really had any action at international level. For the locks, it's kind of similar to hooker in that it's pretty clear who the preferred guys are, and obviously there's no Achia Snyman, so this will change, I would say, going forward if that guy can get himself fit. But you've got, look at number 4. Eben Etzebeth just plays so many of the minutes for South Africa. He has just been ever present for South Africa this year. And then 5 is kind of split between De Jager and Mostert. Those guys trade places a bit. Now, Mostert's also on here if you get into the flanks. But in terms of lock, he's your third guy. He is that fill-in guy. He's been playing a lot from the bench in recent times. Some of the other guys kind of around the top, you've got the likes of Marvin Ori, who's had a bit of time. You've had Nico Janse van Rensburg, and sometimes the guys have kind of had to play. There's like a few minutes, token minutes, like, what was it, one of them, Eben had to go off, so Lut came on at the same time as Franco, which is not something that I often see. But yeah, so some of these guys are on both columns, but for the most part, it's your 3 guys. It's Eben, it's Franco, and it's Lut. Achia is out of the picture for now. So that's how you're looking for locks. When you add the loose forwards into the mix, again, when you look at the open side, I don't need to tell you who that is, do I? I mean, Kolisi has just played an incredible amount of rugby this year. He is ever present. He has played almost 90% of all the minutes on the open side this year. He's your captain, so maybe that's what you need. Hooper, I think, kind of does the same, but it'll be interesting once we have a look at Australia to compare. But yeah, Kolisi, he's been fit, and he has been just ever present. So yeah, a hell of a lot of time for him. Interestingly, blindside is one where there's a bit of rotation, because you've actually got your green guy there is Quaker Smith. He's been playing a lot in the absence of Pieter-Steph du Toit. Pieter-Steph is there in yellow. And it's one of those ones where maybe you look at this and go, his injury may be not a bad thing. I know he's a world-class player, and you've been missing him, especially towards the tail end of the season. I know the Springboks went on a great run up north, just dropped that last game against England, but any team's going to be better off with Pieter-Steph there. But in terms of your depth building, because you know what Pieter-Steph can do, former World Player of the Year, maybe whether he plays or not, you kind of know what class he's got. Franco Mostert's there in blue. So yeah, it's kind of those 3 guys. And another couple of guys who've kind of stood in when they need to, Van Staden and Visa. And then number 8 went with the reverse way from Pieter-Steph, and that Vermeulen missed the start of the season. He comes in, he's still green, so he plays pretty much half of the Springboks time. The rest of the time is Visa. It was good to get him, even though he kind of got relegated once Vermeulen came back. It was good to get him in and see what he could do. And then Quaker Smith's there in green, so he's played a little bit of that time. So looking at the forwards, hooker is one area where it'd be nice to see, because if Marks or Bongi went down, that would be a little bit concerning. The depth and prop seems to have been covered with the injury to Malherbe, so you've seen that Trevor has kind of made the step across. No problem at all. You know you've got Snyman coming back eventually if he can get himself fit. In terms of locks, Marvin Ori could maybe use some more minutes. And then, yeah, Sia just absolutely dominating at open side, but as the captain, it's kind of to be expected. So Michael van Staden's kind of living off scraps. For the backs, it's another one where you look and go, injury has kind of maybe helped South Africa build a bit of depth here, because your green guy for halfback is Faf de Klerk. He's another one that it's, you know what he can do. World Cup winning halfback, played when Rassie was head coach, the lion's share of the minutes, every game that he was available, pretty much. Some games he went, well into the 70s. He may have even just kept some of the guys relegated to being an unused substitute at times. But with his injury, what that has seen is a bit more experimentation at halfback. So you've seen Reinach is there in blue, and then Herschel Yankees is there in the yellow. So those are your top 3 guys. They did try Hendrickse. Unfortunately, he got injured, so he is just that kind of small piece of the pie, which is unfortunate, because he did look sharp in what very limited time we saw him. And then you've even got, in purple, I think that is Cheslin Colby from when he jumped in when someone had a yellow card. I vaguely remember that. That's the only reason Colby's there. So getting this data was kind of a pain in the bum, because you had to kind of sometimes see who's switching positions, and when there's a yellow card or an HIA, guys come back on and guys switch to different positions. It's a bit of a pain. But I think the overall data, it's not going to be 100% accurate, because it's one man gathering all the data, and that's me. I'm bound to make mistakes somewhere, but hopefully it kind of gives us a general indication. 10, no kind of prizes for guessing who's your 10. Andre Pollard gets the lion's share of the minutes. Elton is there in blue, and then you've had Mornay Steyn in there in yellow. and his minutes are kind of gone. They were well spent. He got the result in the Lions tour, but he's kind of out of the picture now. He's retired from international rugby. And then Damien Villemsa had a very brief stint, and he's one guy when you look into this depth chart, it's going. He's one that didn't. They tried to get him some minutes, but he ended up getting injured. So yeah, he's one that kind of is a bit of a loser when you're looking at the depth chart in terms of the individuals. The midfield, again, it's been so stable. It's that world-class Dale and combo, a midfield that most countries at the moment would look to with a bit of envy. They have been ever present. But just looking at that, how many minutes both those guys have played, if one of them goes down, it is going to be problematic. So it would be nice to see some more guys get some minutes. Frans Steen's your guy there at blue for 12, and Jesse Creel's your blue guy there at 13. So the majority of the time, it's been those two guys. And it's hard to argue with success. When they're getting the results, why would you change them? It's always that balance of how often do you rotate these guys and how much do you allow them to build combinations, especially when they haven't played any rugby together in 2020. But yeah, there you go. Outside backs, you've got two pretty dominant guys there on left wing and right wing, and left wing and fullback, and then right wing is another one where injury has kind of enforced a bit of experimentation and passport issues. So left wing is Makazola Mpimpi. He plays, I think, the most minutes, second only to Khaleesi. He is ever present. Just like Khaleesi, he plays the majority of the games that he is available. The second guy there is Fussy. He's there in blue. He's one that you would probably look at and go, man, I wish that guy got a few more minutes. He's sitting there with that kind of little slice of the pie. Yeah, so if Mpimpi had got injured, maybe Fussy would have got some more minutes, but that's not what we saw. What we saw was Colby get injured. So Colby got injured. He's that blue guy there on the right wing, so that meant Nkosi actually got more minutes. He's in green, but then he had his passport issues, so we saw Jesse Creel get some time, and he's in yellow. So you actually saw three guys have a legit crack, but of left and right, it was left wing where the action was at this year, wasn't it? So maybe Mpimpi getting that consistent run of rugby, or maybe it's just the ball bounced his way. Left wing often gets more ball, right? Because guys pass better to their left. I don't know. But yeah, certainly left wing was where it was at this year. You've got Roscoe Speckman there as well. He did get a little bit of game time, but only very, very early on in the season. Otherwise, kind of seemed to be on the outer. And then fullback is LaRue. He's in green. I know a lot of South African fans would like to see Fussy having some minutes there, but he doesn't get any. Frans Steen, just like with the midfield, he's the guy who gets a bit of a slice there in blue. And then Damien Villemsa has had a touch at fullback. So you can really see across all the positions, there's some that are absolutely dominated by key individuals. You're looking at Eben in the second row. You're looking at Sia in the back row. You're looking at Hondre at 10. The midfield of Delende and then Makazola on the left wing, and then also Villy at fullback. The positions where they've had key injuries to the likes of Colby, to the likes of Peter Steff, to the likes of Frans Malherbe and Faf de Klerk are the areas where you've seen more experimentation from the box. Just kind of must. So what's the 15 that's played the most across the season? If you were going to turn on your TV, the most likely team you would see would be Kitsoff and Mbonambi and Malherbe, Eben and Lut in the second row, Quaker, Sia and Dwayne, Faf, Hondre, Damien, Lucanio, Mpimpi, Makazola, Sibu and LaRue. That's your 15 who gets the majority of the minutes. And interestingly, if you look at that, that's pretty much the team that played in the World Cup final. The only guys are Quaker Smith and Sibu Nkosi who weren't in there. So you're missing Peter Steff and Cheslin Colby. And to be honest, if those guys are fit, then those guys play, and Quaker probably drops out and Sibu probably drops out. But I do think, like when you look at the Springboks squad, some of those guys, in terms of a World Cup squad, which is limited in number, are tremendously valuable. The likes of Inyakani, who can cover both sides of the scrum. Frans Steen, who's been your fill-in guy in fullback and in your midfield. Quaker Smith, who, as I said, if Peter Steff is available, probably doesn't start, but he's got a heck of a lot of minutes, and he's played a bit of 7 in South Africa, and a bit of 8. So he's covered a fair bit of experience, and yeah, just those guys mean you've legit got more coverage from fewer bodies. you don't have to have as many guys. And in the World Cup squad, you are fighting for those spaces. So having that experience across different positions is valuable. The breakthrough guy is obviously Oxenche, who's come really into the squad, got himself a big chunk of minutes. Obviously, with the retirement of Tendai Mtawira, that was going to happen. But guys who need minutes, I mean, obviously, I think Fussy needs minutes. Villemsa, they tried, but he got injured. Needed some minutes. If Dweba is going to be the third hooker, he probably needs some minutes. Marvin Ori did get a couple of tastes, but not any kind of consistent time. He probably needs some time. Van Staden, if he's going to be the guy going forward. I know he got injured. But yeah, it's kind of hard when Kolisi is there. Has anyone been discarded? Maybe Speckman. I'm not sure he's going to get his way back. Elstart was there, but I think 17 minutes for him. So I can't really see him getting back at this point, but maybe because he's another versatile guy who can cover multiple positions. Mornay Stain, like I mentioned, is gone. So yeah, Slayman to return, as I mentioned. That's it. So looking at that, to me, it seems like rotation was very much not the order of the day. It was about getting that winning team, and largely they succeeded. Obviously, they had a few losses on the road, especially, but every team did this year. Injuries enforced some changes, which maybe in the long-term benefits of the team is a good thing. But what changes do we want to see for 22? I think largely those guys that I mentioned, and there will be other guys who are not in that squad yet who will be pushing to get into that squad. Like I know Halant, who's been in the squad before, has been really pushing, you know, at URC level. Whether he can kind of crack into it when they've already invested in Villemsa remains to be seen. Rus has also been really good, loose forward. But I think also one thing this shows us is that getting into that squad full of World Cup winners is incredibly hard. Ox, so far, is the only guy who's really done it with genuine success. The only guy who's got really huge chunks of minutes. Everyone else is kind of a pretty familiar face. But yeah, that's it. Wow, 17 minutes. I better go. Thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, it was a bit of work getting all the numbers together, and there will be some kind of errors in terms of like how many minutes exactly it was. But I think largely it should give us a pretty fair idea. It's not just as simple as slapping the number on the back, because as I said, guys did move around during games, especially when there was yellow cards and whatnot. You know, injuries and guys just changing position when they came on. But hopefully it's largely kind of indicatively accurate. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope it was an interesting watch. I certainly found it interesting gathering the stats. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the Springboks squad for 2022, 2021, and what you would like to see them do in 2022. And I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.